Welcome to the Freed from Stuck podcast. Our topic today is what is a mompreneur? Helping women become and stay freed from stuck as mothers and business owners. Your host today is Susie Hayes. Go to www.freedfromstuck.com. Hi, I'm Susie Hayes, and this is the Freed from Stuck podcast. As our economy has shifted over the past several decades, as women have been more encouraged and supported to own and expand their own businesses, either by necessity or choice, women have faced the challenge of balancing the responsibilities of their household and the responsibilities of their business, without living in a state of guilt or exhaustion. These courageous creatures who take on this daunting task have been called mompreneurs. Over 71% of mompreneurs are the primary childcare provider in their homes while building their businesses. 57% start their businesses after the age of 40. These women often sacrifice personal time, friendships, health care, sleep, and family time. As an author, speaker, self-discovery advisor, and certified life coach, I'd like to introduce to you Dena Adams from Loveland, Colorado, who thrives on helping mompreneurs. She is here to encourage and inspire us today. Welcome, Dena. So good to have this opportunity to talk with you.
Oh, Susie, thank you. I'm so honored to be here.
People come to us, to you and to me, basically because they have a problem, they're in pain, or they're stuck in some way, and they want us to help them find a way to meet the need or to solve the problem. What kinds of issues do you find with mompreneurs that you help them with?
So I kind of have my top 5 that people come to me most often with. And first and foremost is self-doubt. A lot of times because, we might feel confident and strong in where we are. When we start sharing our wisdom, we always don't feel so confident in that. The second one is lack of value. And again, it speaks to what they believe about themselves. And then money mindset, maybe not enough time, not knowing how to fit their business into their life without sacrificing their time with their family. And then a lot of times I hear them talk about their lack of time for their faith and being able to find that trust in their faith and incorporate that into all aspects of their life.
Kind of wisdom or insight or guidance do you give them, and maybe even out of your own personal experience?
Oh, absolutely. What I do with helping women is almost 100% based on my life and how I have been able to actually overcome all of those things myself, which makes me feel so much more confident in being able to help women with that. What I found for myself, and as I work with women, the main thing that is struggling in that foundation is their core value, knowing who they are to their core. And although we have an idea of who we are to some degree, we have our basic reactions, our instinctive thoughts, our actions, the things that we do on kind of like a cruise control. But what we don't realize is that's really not who we are at our core. It's what has been instilled upon us and the perception we have taken from others as we've grown through our life. And it's evolved into that. And then who we were born to be at our core has gotten lost. And so I feel like that is what creates that constant inner struggle of self-doubt, lack of value, knowing where you stand and being able to stand firm on that and be able to be confident in who you are, what decisions you make, without worrying so much about what everybody else has to say about it.
You and I chatted a few minutes yesterday about our sort of kindred understanding of this, what I refer to in my book and in my workshops as the soul's blueprint. And I kind of I identify that as the map with which we have arrived on the planet. And we get to create our lives based upon that, but basically we kind of come in with this sort of instinctive structure internally in our DNA that if we get out of alignment with that, it becomes problematic. I want to know more about what your understanding of that is, and how do you work with someone to bring them into alignment with that foundation?
We do what we think will keep the peace, but in all actuality, what we're doing is destroying ourselves from the inside, because then we suffer in silence. And I did that for so long. And so when I work with women, I like to help them figure out first and foremost, what do you believe about your role as a wife, as a mother, as a daughter of Christ, if that's your belief system or whatever your faith is. Like, what do you believe about being a mom, and what do you believe about money? And we dive into figuring out whatever area they feel stuck. We dive into their belief around that first. And it always, every time, never fails, whether it's business, relationships, all the areas that you mentioned, it always comes back to their inner belief every single time. And so that's when we really get into figuring out and diving into what core values they're living from now, if it's working for them, if it's not working for them, what they want to keep, what they don't want to keep. Because as we grow and change in our life, the foundation that we stand on shifts. And if we don't shift with it and let go of things that no longer serve us and add and bring in the things that are now going to support us moving forward, we're going to stand on something that's breakable. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that we all go through, right? We all have our own stuff that we battle, and we don't always know how to heal from that. But I think it comes down to the fact that we never even knew, and we're never taught how to go internal to learn who we are to begin with.
So give us some quality questions to go into that world.
Discover, where do you keep getting stuck? I believe it's that there's something inside of you that you have a belief somewhere that you don't believe you either deserve that, you know how to accept it, or your belief around it is maybe different than it needs to be because you haven't shifted it as you've grown. So I like people to decide, where are you stuck? What's the repetition? What is it that you keep getting stuck in your relationships, in your business, in yourself, in all these things? What's the common denominator? What are you seeing? And that's the first thing we dive into.
So how do you dig down into that? How do you find that with your clients?
One thing women tend to get stuck with is, I don't know if what I'm saying is valuable. I don't know how to put it out there. I did this course and I put all this together, but now nothing's coming in, and they think it's all a different problem. Well, maybe it's not a different problem. Maybe it's your money mindset. Okay. And this was a big one for me. And I'm going to share this specific process because this is what I just discovered like a couple months ago. And I thought I was good. I thought my money mindset was awesome. What I learned was, well, I had to really look within myself and figure out, for me, my self-confidence. So here I thought it was a money mindset. It actually came down to my self-confidence in this one area. I'm confident, right? A lot of us are very confident, or we wouldn't go into business. However, there's pieces of our life that we feel lacking in that confidence and in that value. And then if I take it a step further, what ended up happening as I was reading a book, I can't think of it off the top of my head, I learned that my true issue was, I'm a giver. I love to serve. I'll give someone money. I'll help them. But what I learned is, when I feel that if people that I love and care about ask, I'm obligated to provide. even if it's not my responsibility. So I was afraid to make money in fear that I would have to give it away because otherwise people would ridicule me for not giving in my ability to do well for myself. This issue took me months to figure out and come to conclusions with, because I mean, this is just hitting the tip of the iceberg about the things that I ask my clients and how we work through this. But the great thing about it is knowing there's an answer and it will come, but you have to be patient. You have to be willing to go into these places that you probably don't want to relive so you can learn what you need to learn. But I think if you're not willing to sit and go through these questions and really ask yourself the hard things and go to those places and learn what's truly inside of you about your beliefs and everything, you really don't have the opportunity to change it. You can change your mindset. You can do your I am statements, which I do. You can do all of these positive personal development things. But if you're not doing the self-development, which is the internal growth of your character and your integrity and your foundation, then all you're doing is standing on a foundation that's not solid and building up all these other things and hoping they don't fall and hoping that you can stand on that. And I think that's where people tend to misunderstand the whole realm of personal development, business development, and their growth, and they're missing where their lack is. They're thinking it's in the people that they're confiding in, the people that they're turning to for support and help, when really it's their own lack of going internal and knowing the right questions to ask them to strengthen that foundation.
We live in a very fast-paced culture. People have limited resources and time. They want things to happen quickly. And the reality is that if we are going to really create effective and lasting change, sustained change on which we can continue to build in our lives, we have to do the work that we have to do. You've really touched on it, that to be able to do that, it requires an inner journey to move from being stuck to freed from stuck. I use the metaphor of crossing a bridge. And you mentioned something earlier, that you also have to let go of what no longer serves you, which means there's also a grieving element to change. We have to let go of certain things, whether it's our beliefs. Sometimes it's that we have to change connections or attachments. It means sometimes that we have to have different relationships. Mm-hmm. It means that we have to grieve certain ways in which we've lived our life. But it requires that we do that work, and the grieving is one of the most difficult, if not the most difficult task that we have as human beings. And so this is not an easy process, but it is such a rewarding process if we can connect, as we were talking earlier, with the alignment into our soul's blueprint. Once we get there, it doesn't mean that the challenges go away, but it means that we diminish our suffering and we have greater clarity in moving forward.
It's being honest with yourself about your true reality, not the reality you've created in your mind.
Or that you wish it to be.
Or that you wish it to be, mm-hmm. Exactly. So people, when I work with people, that's one of the most important things, is you have to be willing to, if you're not already, willing to be at a place and get to a place where you can be completely honest with yourself about what is actually happening. And so for me, I think it's real important that even if your part in a situation is 1%, you take full responsibility of that 1% and you let everybody else own their own. Don't take on everybody else's stuff as your responsibility. Own your own and move forward. You cannot change anybody but yourself. And so when we're going through these, what do people need to do to work with you and to go through this freed from stuck process? What do they need to do to work with anyone who's going to help them? They need to be honest with themselves. They need to be willing to take responsibility. And third, they need to be able to communicate with themselves about how they feel, who they are, where they've been, where they want to go, so they can be able to communicate that to the person who is there doing their best to help them. Without those three things, I feel like no matter what you do, you're going to get stuck again because you're not willing to do those core things that people need to be willing to do in order to move forward.
It's a real challenge, and it takes courage to go to those places. And our instinct is always to avoid pain.
Yes.
Right? I mean, who wants to go there? And
no one.
No one does.
No.
But I think that you're also sharing in your transparency, Dena, that all of us, even those of us who are healers, those of us who have done the work, inevitably there will be challenges for us. And
Yes.
we have points where we have to literally apply to ourselves what we extend to others, right? And
yes, exactly.
Out of that application that I gain the greatest insight. It's I had someone, I don't know, a few months ago, I was kind of struggling with someone, and they said, well, maybe you should like read your own book about that. And I was like, okay, point well taken, well taken. And it's true, right? And it is a challenge. It is a challenge to move out of a position of victim, especially if we've been victimized. And all of us have been victimized in some aspect in our lives.
Yes.
All of us have been betrayed. All of us have been abandoned and rejected. That's part of our human experience.
Right.
But what you're identifying is what we decide we're going to do with that.
Yes.
And how that is going to impact us in such a way that we make choices to use that experience with regard to the wisdom and the insight that we gain in it. Hopefully the compassion and empathy that we gain, and the courage and the truth and the forthrightness that we can gain in those experiences to speak the truth that we know or understand, and to make a decision that we're going to live a better quality of life in spite of and because of those experiences. And that takes a lot of damn courage to do that.
Absolutely.
But it is, I think, the way that we're meant to live.
To be an observer of the situation, not to go back into it, right? We don't want to go back there, but we need to observe what happened to make me feel like I am here. Ask yourself the tough questions, like what part did I have in that? Did I even have any part in that? Am I responsible for anything? As a rape victim, that's very hard to process as far as I had any hand in this at all, right? Because that's not your fault that someone else chooses to do that. However, for me, it kept happening over the course of 3 years as a teenager. What was I doing? What choices was I making? What was going on that I kept getting into that situation? Once I pinpointed that, okay, now I can grieve what happened to me. And I can come to terms with that. And I have to figure that out for myself, what that means to me. Because no one can tell me how to grieve or how long it takes or what I need to go through to heal, right? So I had to go through that grieving and healing process for myself. Then I was able to decide, now, how do I move forward in my life, no longer bound to the reactions that I was living? It was a very painful, dark part of my life. So why can I talk about it and I'm okay? It's because it no longer has any emotional hold on me whatsoever. That doesn't keep me from being empathetic or sympathetic to others who are going through that, because I still know how that feels. But if I'm here to speak to others and empower others, I feel that I can do that without feeling like I have to be crying and emotional about it to show that, you know what, it really sucked. It was like, I don't even have words to describe how bad my life was going through that. But I don't feel that anymore. I felt it then.
The goal is to be able to have the memory and to remember the emotions, but not to re-experience the emotions in the memory.
I love how, that's perfect. Yes.
Yeah, that's what you were describing. And that is when you know that you've healed from a trauma. is that, yeah, you remember it. You're not dismissing it or diminishing it. You even remember how it felt, the feelings that you had in the experience. But you're remembering it without re-experiencing those traumatic feelings again.
And I mean, there are things in life that can trigger those things. Like there's movies I won't watch. There's things that I don't go there because I know how it will make me feel, and I don't need to feel that way.
And I think you bring up another interesting point, and I think we're going to be wrapping up here in a few minutes, but I had a professor who said, you can see a person down in the well in the darkness, and you know they're in the well and they're in the darkness, but you don't jump in the well with them, right? You throw them a rope and you help them come out. And I think that's really important, is that we have an empathy. We also have an understanding that there is a way out. There is a way up from that. And our responsibility is to thoughtfully support them as they are making that journey out of that dark place.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So as we're wrapping up, let me ask you, Dena, do you have any other thoughts or insights that you'd like to share before we close today?
I think one thing that's really important that for anybody is to know how much you matter. You have value, you have worth, and you're important. And it's not so much what other people say about you or to you that you should be focusing on, because that's not telling you your value. What's telling you your value and your worth is what you say to yourself when you lay your head down at night, when you go to bed, when you're in the quiet space. So be very aware of what you are accepting as your truth. Just because others say it, and you might have haters out there, and you might have people against you, and it might be someone in your own household. Be willing to stand alone and still go after what you know is right and be who you know you're supposed to be. And those people will stay in your life or they won't, but that's not your responsibility. You have a responsibility to yourself, because no one else is going to take that one on.
Well said. Thank you for your time. It has been a great conversation today. I really appreciate you taking the time, and I'll be putting up some contact information for those who are viewing or listening to this, so they have a way to get a hold of you in Loveland, Colorado.
That sounds wonderful. Thank you so much for having me today. It was my pleasure to be able to serve your community.
You're very welcome, Dena. Take care.
All right, you too.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Be sure and check out information about our special guest, Dena Adams, Mompreneur and owner of Seek Defeat Design, author, speaker, self-discovery advisor, and certified life coach. Go to www.denaadams.com. And be sure and check out information about our host, Susie Hayes. Check out www.freedfromstuck.com.